One of the most powerful tools in maintaining your emotional well-being when dealing with toxic people is setting boundaries. However, many of us struggle with this because we associate setting boundaries with being harsh or cold, or we fear that it will create conflict or hurt the other person. But what if we shifted our perspective? Setting boundaries is not about pushing people away. It's about protecting your own mental, emotional, and physical space while still remaining compassionate. Boundaries are like invisible lines that define where one person ends and another begins. They communicate to others how you wish to be treated, and they are an essential part of any healthy relationship, whether personal or professional. Without clear boundaries, it's easy to feel overwhelmed, drained, or taken advantage of by others, especially toxic people who may try to overstep, manipulate, or dominate your time and energy. When you set boundaries, it's important to remember that you are not doing this out of malice or in an effort to punish someone. You're doing it out of self-respect and a deep understanding of your worth. Boundaries come from a place of love for yourself, not a desire to hurt or distance yourself from others. By establishing clear and compassionate limits, you are not only protecting your peace, but also fostering healthier, more respectful relationships. And so, how can you set boundaries with compassion? Be clear and direct. The first step in setting a compassionate boundary is being clear and direct with the person involved. Toxic people thrive on ambiguity because it gives them the freedom to push limits. By communicating your boundaries openly, you make it easier for the other person to understand where you stand. This isn't about being rude or confrontational. It's about being clear and assertive in a calm, respectful manner. For instance, if a colleague constantly interrupts you during meetings, you might say, "I need uninterrupted time to share my thoughts, so I'd appreciate it if you could hold your questions until I'm finished speaking." Use I statements. It's easy for someone to feel attacked when you use accusatory language. Instead of saying, "You're always interrupting me," say, "I feel unheard when I'm interrupted and I need space to express myself fully." This way you focus on your feelings and needs rather than placing blame. This approach is gentler and more likely to invite cooperation. Be consistent. Boundaries only work when they are consistently enforced. It can be tempting to let small violations slide, but if you do, you risk sending the message that your boundaries are negotiable. Toxic people in particular will test your limits repeatedly. It's important to stand firm and maintain your boundaries consistently. If you say you don't want to be interrupted during work hours, make sure to follow through every time it happens. Over time, your consistency will help the other person understand that these are not suggestions, but non-negotiable limits. Offer alternatives when appropriate. Compassionate boundaries don't mean you shut people down without offering an alternative. If a friend is constantly calling you late at night when you need rest, instead of simply saying, "Don't call me anymore," you could say, "I need to sleep early for work, but I'm happy to talk to you during the day if that works for you." This shows that you still value the relationship and want to maintain it, but on terms that work for you. Be prepared for pushback. When you begin to set boundaries, especially with toxic individuals, you might face resistance. Toxic people often react with frustration, guilt tripping, or even anger because they are used to having their way. This can feel uncomfortable, but it's important to remember that their reactions are a reflection of their own behavior, not your actions. Stick to your boundaries with kindness, but without wavering. Let them know that your boundaries are there for your own well-being, and while you respect their feelings, you cannot compromise your needs. Practice self-compassion. As you set and enforce your boundaries, it's important to be kind to yourself. You may feel guilty at first, especially if you've allowed certain behaviors to slide in the past. It's okay to feel conflicted or uncomfortable. Setting boundaries is a learning process. Just as you would offer compassion to a friend who is going through a tough time, offer that same kindness to yourself. Remind yourself that you are deserving of respect and that setting boundaries is a healthy, necessary act of self-care. Know that boundaries can evolve. Sometimes the boundaries we set at one point in time may no longer serve us as we grow or as situations change. It's okay to reassess and adjust your boundaries as necessary. If a particular boundary doesn't feel right after some time, or if the circumstances surrounding a toxic person change, give yourself permission to reevaluate and modify your limits. Boundaries aren't rigid, they are fluid and should be adjusted to suit your needs and the evolving nature of your relationships. Setting boundaries with compassion doesn't mean you're being selfish, nor does it mean you're pushing people away. Rather, it's an act of self-preservation and self-respect that allows you to honor your own needs while maintaining healthy relationships. By clearly defining your limits, you are creating space for yourself to thrive and for others to engage with you in a more respectful, positive way. And most importantly, by setting compassionate boundaries, you're teaching others how to treat you, which in turn fosters deeper, more authentic connections. Emotional detachment is often misunderstood as a cold or uncaring way of relating to others, but it is in fact one of the most powerful tools you can develop in dealing with toxic people. It's not about withdrawing or shutting yourself off emotionally. Rather, it's about creating a healthy separation between your emotional state and the actions or words of others. In essence, emotional detachment allows you to protect your peace, maintain your sense of self, and respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. And here's a key takeaway. Emotional detachment always requires when you encounter toxic individuals, whether in the form of passive-aggressive comments, criticism, manipulation, or overt negativity, your first instinct might be to feel hurt, angry, or defensive. These emotions are natural, but when left unchecked, they can lead to a spiral of negativity that drains your energy and disrupts your emotional balance. Emotional detachment helps you to manage these feelings, creating the space needed to respond rather than react. Understanding emotional detachment. At its core, emotional detachment means recognizing that you are not responsible for other people's emotions or behaviors. It's the realization that you can't control what someone else says or does, but you do have full control over how you respond to it. This doesn't mean you suppress your emotions or become indifferent to others. It simply means you are no longer allowing someone else's toxicity to dictate your emotional state. It's about finding emotional freedom and a sense of peace that remains undisturbed by external chaos. Think of emotional detachment as an act of self-preservation. When you detach, you create a mental and emotional buffer between you and the toxic person. You acknowledge their behavior, but you choose not to let it affect your emotional well-being. You can still feel empathy or concern for the person, but you recognize that their actions are not a reflection of your worth or your happiness. Why emotional detachment is necessary with toxic people. Toxic people thrive on stirring up drama, creating chaos, or projecting their negative emotions onto others. Whether they are deliberately manipulative or simply consumed by their own unresolved issues, they seek to pull you into their emotional turmoil. If you react emotionally to every insult, criticism, or toxic comment they throw your way, you may find yourself in a constant emotional battle that drains you and ultimately feeds into their negativity. Emotional detachment offers a much needed escape from this vicious cycle. It allows you to see the toxic person's behavior for what it truly is, a reflection of their own struggles or insecurities. When you detach, you don't internalize their actions or let their words define your self-worth. You remain centered and secure in who you are, unaffected by the negativity around you. So, how to practice emotional detachment? Separate yourself from the situation. The first step in emotional detachment is to create physical or mental space between you and the toxic person or situation. If you're in a conversation with a person who is toxic, try to step back emotionally by reminding yourself that this is their issue, not yours. If possible, remove yourself from the situation entirely. If you can't leave physically, take a few deep breaths, focus on grounding yourself, and remind yourself that their behavior doesn't need to affect you. Recognize the pattern. Most toxic people have predictable behaviors or triggers that set them off. By identifying these patterns, you can mentally prepare yourself for how they may behave and avoid being caught off guard. Recognizing that their outbursts, manipulations, or criticism are part of a regular pattern helps you detach more easily because you stop seeing each instance as a personal attack. Instead, you begin to see it as just part of their cycle of negativity that you don't have to engage with. Mind your thoughts. The way we think about a situation has a profound impact on our emotional response. If you focus on the toxic person's behavior and take it personally, it will likely trigger an emotional reaction. But if you remind yourself that you cannot control their actions and that their negativity is about them, not you, you can distance yourself emotionally from their words or actions. Use positive affirmations or thoughts to center yourself, such as, I am in control of my feelings, or their actions don't define my worth. Don't get caught in drama. Toxic people often engage in drama, gossip, or negativity to stir the pot and pull others in. One of the best ways to practice emotional detachment is by refusing to engage with their drama. This might mean refraining from reacting to their provocations or simply not participating in conversations that you know will lead to negativity. Practice the art of disengagement. Listen without getting involved. Stay neutral and resist the urge to defend yourself or argue. Focus on what you can control. Emotional detachment isn't about ignoring the person or the situation altogether. It's about focusing on what you can control, your response. You cannot control how others behave, but you can control how you react. This shift in focus takes away the power that toxic people have over you. When you begin to focus on your own emotions, actions, and needs, you realize that you don't need to engage with negativity to maintain your peace. Cultivate a supportive network. Having a strong support system is essential for practicing emotional detachment. Friends, family, or a therapist who understand and respect your boundaries can offer you perspective and emotional grounding when dealing with toxic people. They help remind you that you are not alone and provide a safe space for you to process and release any negative emotions that might arise. Practice self-compassion. When you're dealing with toxic people, it's easy to become critical of yourself. You might wonder if you're being too sensitive or whether you're overreacting. To practice emotional detachment effectively, it's important to be kind to yourself. Acknowledge that it's normal to feel emotions, anger, frustration, sadness, when you're confronted with toxic behavior. What matters is how you manage those emotions. Self-compassion is key to not internalizing negativity and giving yourself the space to heal. The benefits of emotional detachment. When you consistently practice emotional detachment with toxic people, you create emotional resilience. You become less likely to be drawn into their games or to internalize their negativity. You are able to maintain a sense of peace and equanimity, even in challenging situations. Emotional detachment frees you from the emotional burden of others' toxic behavior, allowing you to focus your energy on what truly matters to you. Moreover, practicing emotional detachment helps you maintain clarity. It allows you to think more clearly, make decisions without emotional cloudiness, and engage in healthier, more balanced relationships. Over time, this practice leads to emotional maturity, helping you navigate life's challenges with more ease and confidence. One of the most crucial lessons when dealing with toxic people is learning not to take their actions, words, or behavior personally. This is easier said than done, especially when you feel like you're being targeted, insulted, or mistreated. Our natural inclination is to react to negative behavior by internalizing it, making it feel like an attack on our worth or character. But here's the truth. When toxic people behave poorly, it's really about you. It's about them, their struggles, and their unresolved issues. The ability to detach from this perspective and avoid taking things personally is one of the most empowering ways to protect your emotional well-being and avoid getting caught up in unnecessary negativity. Understanding why we take things personally. Taking things personally often stems from our need for validation. As human beings, we all want to feel valued, respected, and loved. And when those things are threatened, we can easily start to question ourselves. If a toxic person insults you or behaves in a hurtful way, it's easy to internalize their words and believe that they somehow reflect the truth about who you are. It's natural to feel hurt when someone criticizes you or when their actions make you feel small or insignificant. But the truth is, their actions are more about their own issues than they are about your worth. Toxic people often act out of their own insecurity, fear, jealousy, or anger. They may be projecting their unhappiness or personal struggles onto you. When they lash out, it's not a reflection of your shortcomings, but rather a manifestation of their unresolved emotions. When you begin to recognize this, you can shift your mindset from taking things personally to understanding that their behavior is a symptom of their internal world, not a commentary on your value or character. Why it's important not to take it personally. Taking things personally often leads to unnecessary emotional turmoil. When you internalize a toxic person's behavior, you may feel angry, sad, defensive, or confused, and you can easily get caught up in a cycle of negative emotions. Over time, this emotional drain can lead to anxiety, frustration, or even resentment. You may start to doubt your worth or feel like you're at the mercy of someone else's mood swings or manipulative behavior. This creates a toxic dynamic where you're constantly reacting to others rather than taking control of your own emotional state. By learning not to take things personally, you regain your power. You stop giving toxic people the ability to control your emotions. You also become less affected by their behavior, which allows you to maintain a sense of peace and clarity regardless of their actions. When you no longer allow someone's negativity to define how you feel about yourself, you can act from a place of strength and confidence rather than defensiveness or vulnerability. How to stop taking things personally. Recognize the source of their behavior. The first step in not taking something personally is understanding where it's coming from. Toxic people often behave the way they do because of their own internal struggles. They might be dealing with unresolved pain, jealousy, frustration, or fear. When you see their behavior for what it truly is, someone projecting their inner turmoil onto you, it becomes easier to detach emotionally and not internalize their actions. For example, if a colleague constantly belittles your ideas in a meeting, try to recognize that their behavior may stem from their own insecurity or fear of being overshadowed. Their need to tear you down says more about them than it does about you. This awareness can help you avoid taking their actions personally and allow you to respond in a way that protects your peace. Pause before reacting. When someone says or does something hurtful, it's easy to immediately react with anger, frustration, or defensiveness. However, this knee-jerk reaction often exacerbates the situation. Instead of immediately reacting, take a pause, step back mentally and emotionally, and give yourself a moment to breathe. Ask yourself, is this truly about me, or is this about their own issues? This pause gives you the space to detach from the emotion of the moment and consider the situation with clarity. Often you'll realize that their behavior doesn't need to trigger a response in you. Instead, you can choose to let their actions roll off you without allowing them to affect your mood or sense of self. Separate your identity from their words and actions. It's easy to link someone's words or actions to your own identity, especially when they criticize you or treat you poorly. But it's vital to remember that what others say or do does not define you. A toxic person's words do not hold the power to shape who you are unless you let them. To help with this, practice self-affirmations that reaffirm your value. Remind yourself that you are worthy of respect, love, and kindness, no matter what others say or do. By separating your identity from the behavior of toxic people, you maintain a strong sense of self that isn't swayed by their negativity. Consider the bigger picture. Sometimes when we're in the heat of a situation, it's hard to see beyond the immediate discomfort. But taking a step back and looking at the bigger picture can offer perspective. Ask yourself, what is the long-term impact of this person's behavior on my life? How important is their opinion in the grand scheme of things? When you see a toxic person's actions from a broader perspective, you can begin to detach from the immediate emotional impact. You realize that their behavior is just a small part of the larger picture of your life, and it doesn't have the power to derail your sense of purpose or happiness. But practice empathy without taking on their pain. This doesn't mean excusing toxic behavior or allowing it to continue, but practicing empathy allows you to see that the toxic person's actions are often the result of their own emotional wounds. They may have unresolved pain, a lack of self-awareness, or unhealthy coping mechanisms that make them act out. Recognizing this can help you not take their behavior personally, but it also doesn't mean you should tolerate mistreatment. By understanding their underlying struggles, you can remain compassionate without letting their negativity affect you. This emotional distance protects you from absorbing their toxicity while allowing you to remain grounded in your own emotional state. Set and enforce boundaries. Setting boundaries is one of the most effective ways to prevent toxic people from affecting your emotional state. When you draw clear lines about what behavior is acceptable and what is not, you send the message that you will not tolerate disrespect or negativity. Boundaries also protect your energy by giving you the space to disengage from toxic situations before they escalate. For example, if a friend frequently belittles you, you can set a boundary by telling them that you will no longer tolerate those kinds of comments. When you enforce boundaries consistently, it becomes easier to detach emotionally, because you have set a clear limit on what you will accept. Let go of the need for approval. Often, taking things personally stems from a deep-seated desire for approval or validation from others. We want people to like us, respect us, and see us in a positive light. However, the truth is, you don't need everyone's approval to feel good about yourself. Your worth is not dependent on others' opinions. When you let go of the need for constant approval, you free yourself from the emotional roller coaster that toxic people can create. You stop depending on external validation for your self-esteem, and instead, you begin to find peace and confidence within yourself. The power of not taking it personally. When you stop taking things personally, you take back control of your emotional state. You stop allowing toxic people to dictate how you feel, and instead you choose to maintain your peace regardless of their behavior. This emotional freedom allows you to focus on what truly matters to you: your goals, your relationships, your well-being. By letting go of the need for validation and understanding that toxic people's actions are about them, not you, you preserve your sense of self-worth and emotional health. You develop resilience, and you build a strong foundation for dealing with life's challenges, all while protecting your peace and authenticity. In the midst of dealing with toxic people and difficult circumstances, one of the most important skills you can cultivate is self-compassion. Self-compassion is the practice of treating yourself with the same kindness, understanding, and patience that you would offer a close friend or loved one who is going through a tough time. It involves embracing yourself with love and empathy, especially when you are struggling, rather than criticizing or judging yourself harshly. This is a vital tool in maintaining emotional balance and resilience, particularly when toxic individuals or situations threaten your peace. While it may sound simple, cultivating self-compassion is not always easy, especially in a world that often values achievement, perfection, and outward success over emotional well-being. Many of us are conditioned to be self-critical, to push ourselves beyond our limits, and to focus on our shortcomings rather than our strengths. However, learning to be kind to ourselves, even in our moments of vulnerability or failure, is key to navigating life's challenges with grace and inner peace. The importance of self-compassion in dealing with toxic people. When we interact with toxic individuals, whether it's a manipulative colleague, a critical family member, or a friend who constantly drains our energy, it's easy to internalize their behavior and feel bad about ourselves. Toxic people often engage in belittling, criticism, or even outright hostility. And when we take their words or actions personally, it can cause us to question our worth or doubt our abilities. This is where self-compassion becomes an essential tool. Instead of allowing the toxic person's behavior to chip away at your self-esteem, self-compassion allows you to counteract their negativity with a deep sense of self-love and acceptance. It helps you separate your identity from the actions of others, reinforcing that you are worthy of respect and kindness, no matter how others choose to treat you.